What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Pulled in my bare knuckle Police Gazette scrapbook. 1,000 pages of all bare knuckle, the history of it. And this was, and I have to say, I didn't take the best of care of this. But these are all the managers in bare knuckle history during that time. And I'm going to show you some articles. This is a better way I can show you this. But these are all of the guys who were a part of the bare knuckle. 1800s. You know this man here. Let's see if someone you know. This is Lord Lonsdale. The Lonsdale belt. This one right here. But you have everybody in here. You have Jimmy DeFrost. Everyone's in here. As you can see here, the most noted American, English, and Australian patrons of the fistic era. Managers of the world champions who have figured prominently in all the great fights in the prize ring during the present generation. This is very old. This is back in the 1800s. But I could have taken a little bit better care of this. All right, let me just show you some articles. Now, as we look back in boxing, and we ask ourselves, why has boxing been around so long? I mean, 1681 is what's documented. And so many things have happened from that time until current. I mean, after all, the game is designed to impose one's will over the other one. And we experience that in life to this present day. Boxing always has been and always will be a manipulating sport. The irony of it is to get a person who has the same thoughts that you have and use their energy against them, whether it's physically or mentally. Once again, that is the art form of manipulation in our present time. I don't care if it's George Taylor or Jack Brockton, or even Yankee Sullivan for that matter, who, by the way, was the trainer for Bill Richmond, who was the first black American fighter in boxing history. He was the first black American trainer in boxing history. Yankee Sullivan was the fourth champion in boxing history. Now, to show you parts of my scrapbook here, Richard Humphreys of England. This is a very rare portrait that I'm showing you here. The famous fight between Jim Mace and John C. Heenan. Jim Mace. And John C. Heenan. Now, John O'Sullivan and Charlie Mitchell mix it up March 10th, 1888. In fact, let's talk about John O'Sullivan for one moment. Okay, let's take a look at John O'Sullivan for one moment. You see, boxing was a brutal sport. Still is. But there were no rules at one point in time. You can eye gouge, stomp a man while he's down. When they fought in the dirt, they used to have spikes in their shoes. It was almost guaranteed you would have about 30 knots all over your head when the fight was over. It's a lot different now. But man, it was a brutal sport. You had fights wherever you can have them. Because boxing was illegal. That's why there's a lot of records or a lot of fights, I should say, that are really not on record. And they had to be excused for being exhibitions or just demonstrations. Because once the police came, you could be arrested. Now you have John O'Sullivan to your left and Jake Kilrain to your right. And you see Jake Kilrain handing $5,000 in the direction of John O'Sullivan. Because that was a side bet. That's what you needed to get the fight started. You needed to have a side bet. Now, before John O'Sullivan, you would have Tom Sawyer, Tom King, Jim Mace, Tommy Allen, Joe Gauss, Patty Ryan, John L. Sullivan. And John O'Sullivan would be known as the Boston Strong Boy. John Lawrence Sullivan. He was born October 15th, 1858 in Roxbury, Massachusetts. He weighed anywhere between 180 and 212 pounds. He stood 5'10.5" and he began boxing in 1878. Fought a fighter by the name of Corky Woods in Boston. Technically knocked him out in 5 rounds. And he's been at it ever since. Now he had some exhibitions with Mike Donovan and Joe Gauss. Mike Donovan, several times in fact. Mike Donovan was a middleweight champion. And John O'Sullivan fought all weight divisions, from middleweight to heavyweight. But he was always a heavyweight himself. But he never gave a black fighter a shot. And the 2 closest black fighters that tried to get a shot with him on record was George Godfrey. They called him Old Chocolate. And the Black Prince, Peter Jackson. And he denied both of them. Now, you had other fighters that didn't even try to get his fight with John O'Sullivan. the names were not as high on the pugilistic list, if you will. But the two main black fighters were John L. Sullivan refused to fight, was the Black Prince Peter Jackson, and Old Chocolate George Godfrey. Join me in part 2, bare knuckle fighting. John L. Sullivan, the Boston Strongboy. Used to walk around the saloons and say, I'll beat any son of a bitch in the world, in the house. John L. Sullivan, the Boston Strongboy. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights, all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for watching. Look out for part 2.